Are you ready to make lots of applause and lots of noise? Colour me unconvinced. Prove me wrong. A giant round of applause, please, for Luke Stringer. Come on up, Luke. Keep it going. Keep it going.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. There's a very high expectation for this to be amazing, so hopefully I can meet that expectation. Good afternoon. My name is Luke Stringer. I go by Luke Stringer 90 pretty much everywhere on the internet. So I'm a tech principal for And Digital, working here in Leeds, and I also run the monthly meetup Leeds Mobile. So we'll get started with a show of hands. Who here is a software developer or a programmer or a coder? A lot of us. Fantastic. Oh no, keep your hands up. There's another part to this. So keep your hands up if you have ever wondered if leadership is the right move for you as a developer. Well, a few people have put their hands down. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to explore this topic in this lightning talk today. And we'll start at the beginning, really. Why might you consider moving into leadership? Well, there's a few good reasons why you might want to do that. You might want some new challenges. And those challenges may be that you want to try and solve problems at a broader or a higher level, organisational problems or system problems. And in order to do that, you might need to influence the team culture in some ways that you as an individual contributor cannot do. It's also true that you may just be bored of writing code. That's absolutely fine. It's not exciting every single line of code you write, so you may be looking for a new challenge in a different way. However, for completeness' sake, there are some not so good reasons which you should be aware of. One, maybe that your business only has one route to advancement, and the promotion is only to move into leadership. There's no engineering pathway. You simply have to move into a management position. You may also want more money. So let's really be honest. There's more compensation very often in leadership roles, and that's a valid reason, but that reason alone may not sustain you through the challenges that lie ahead. And very often, and Phil mentioned this earlier, is that the business may think, well, you're a good developer, so therefore you must be a good leader. But spoiler alert, that isn't always the case, and we'll be looking at that. So if you do decide to move into a leadership position, at the core there's this mindset shift, and that shift is from being a developer and to that of being a leader. Now there's a very deep topic that I won't be able to cover in all of its detail, but in a nutshell, in my experience having gone on this journey, it's the difference between having clear outcomes and having ambiguous outcomes. And as a developer, you have the short feedback loop. Your code either compiles or it doesn't. Your tests pass or they fail. Your pull request is approved or changes are required. And I'm an app developer, and it's very easy to know if my code is working because it is released. This is a very clear and short feedback loop. It may be on a minute-to-minute basis or at the most on a sprint-to-sprint basis. However, as a leader, you've got a much longer feedback loop. As you're building teams rather than people, you have to work within the confines of a longer window. That might be mentoring people and trying to bring out the best in them, give them new skills. They may be technical skills or soft skills. You may have to hire a team, and hiring is difficult. You've got to interview people, you've got to put probationary processes in place, you've got to really give them a really solid onboarding. That takes a long time. Business change, so changing the way that your processes work or the kind of things that you deliver to your customers takes a long time. And maybe moving from one technology to another isn't an overnight thing that you can bring about. So the feedback loop is much, much longer. However, if you do commit to this and you're leading technical people, you'll have this consideration about how should I stay technical and how should I stay technical enough. And if, like me, you go through this process, you may ultimately fear that you're losing your technical chops. You're not writing code every single day. You forget the simplicity of the syntax. You don't quite know how to build the project because the dependencies don't resolve themselves, etc. But one thing to learn here, and I would have told myself this when I started on this journey, is that although you might not be as technical in one sense, you'll learn to use those skills differently. So that might be standing up for technical debt and paying it off in the long run, or really trying to think about moving to a new technology because it'll be easier to hire, easier to support. So those are the kind of ideals that you should be embodying. And here's the thing that I picked up along the way. You may have at one point been hands-on. Well, you don't have to be hands-off, but how about hands-warm? So stay in touch with the code. For example, keep doing code review, right? Keep reading that code even if you're not writing it every single day. Fix some bugs, work on some experimental branches. Keep in touch with what the team is doing. Discuss architecture. So get around a whiteboard or a digital whiteboard and have a look at the different things that your team's doing and discuss how you're architecting the system, even if you're not actually writing the classes yourself. Watch developer conferences. So I'm a mobile developer. WWDC from Apple. Google I/O is coming up next month. Go to conferences like this and meetups. Actually spend time with developers and engineers. Talk their language and keep in touch in that way. Just because you're not writing code doesn't mean that you aren't able to understand and live and breathe it. At least I believe that to be the case. Also, try retaining an expertise. Very often in leadership, you're leading people who are from a broad set of different engineering backgrounds. And very often, you're leading people who are far more senior than yourself. And that can be a little bit discombobulating. However, maybe retain an expertise that is not particularly centered on any discipline. So every team needs to do version control, or at least you should be doing that. So having an understanding of Git and how to get out of sticky situations, understanding some debugging techniques, different ways of using different tools, remote tools, analytics and monitoring is really helpful. And perhaps regular expressions. I can't write regular expressions, and now because we've got ChatGPT, I don't really need to learn how to do it either. But that's a really key expertise that is really useful in a lot of projects that you could potentially retain as well. And ultimately, think of it like this, that your newfound ignorance is now a superpower. And you can use that superpower to normalize the asking of stupid or silly or obvious questions that other people who are perhaps more introverted or more junior may struggle to ask themselves. And it will bring everybody up to the same shared understanding. And you can be the person who does that if you have the confidence in your own ignorance. So communication, in any leadership talk, this is the centerpiece. This is the most important part of your job as a leader. And you may ask yourself, as you get into this situation, why are my changes not embedded? Why am I constantly misunderstood? And why do people forget what I've said? If you find yourself in this situation, you may end up like me down here. Think about it. Have you understood and remembered everything your boss has ever told you? The answer is almost certainly not. So have some empathy for the team in which you're leading. They will misremember things and they won't be able to pay attention to every little bit of information you say. And this is where the title of my talk comes from. So as a developer, I learned very early on the DRY principle. Do not repeat yourself. So if you're repeating your code, refactor it into a shared function. However, in leadership, it is the other way around, and I would much encourage you all to think like this. Do repeat yourself, and do it all the time shamelessly, because that is the best way to embed knowledge. And really, the reason you want to duplicate this information is because you sit at the confluence of a lot of different teams at this point, and you're the glue that often holds them all together. And as you're doing that, the communication needs to be repeated, but make it tangible to those different teams. So if you're speaking to product people, make your message make sense to them from a product point of view. Talk about customer satisfaction or business outcomes, whereas if you're talking to developers, talk about technical things. But make sure it's consistent. Don't contradict yourself in different audiences. That will only kick the can down the road. And leadership is very often about switching contexts. And again, that's the golden rule that you want to avoid as a developer. You want to have simple context for you to work inside of. So you need to get good at being effective. And I'm not going to give you any cut and dry rules here. My advice would be to try different things, find what works for you. So do you take handwritten notes? I do, because my typing is very sloppy. But you may want to look at different to-do list applications. I really enjoy using mind mapping. Digital brain tools are really fantastic these days for really capturing knowledge and allowing you to search and index them. Get a good email client. Get a good calendar app, because you're going to spend more time doing email and calendar than you are in your integrated development environment. And as such, get really good at managing, perhaps refactoring your calendar. You'll be doing this an awful lot. And a key thing here that if you take anything away from this talk is this little slogan here. No agenda, then no attender. If somebody's not going to tell you why they want your time, don't turn up. They will soon learn that it is not respectful for you, and also it's not a good use of their time either. If you start writing an agenda and find out that it's actually an email, then just send an email. Don't book a meeting in. And another thing you can do is set people's expectations as early as possible. And a great way to do this is with a manager README. So this is my manager README. This is a working manual for me. So in the same way when you start a new project, you read the README. Well, if you start working with me, I'll include you to read my README. This talks about how I do meetings, my communication style, what my foibles are, what my downsides are, but also what I expect of you and the standards that I expect you to uphold, as well as hold me to account to as well. So a few closing remarks then. This is a really exciting job to do. I find it really diverse, but it is very challenging. So be kind to yourself. And remember that for your team to be effective, you have also got to be effective. Servant leadership is a fantastic ideal, but it shouldn't be that you are burning the midnight oil so your team can be effective. You need to be kind. Think about your mental health as much as you do with other people's. And ultimately, you're no longer building software. You're building a team to build that software. Finally, a few bits of recommended reading that I found really useful over the years. The 1 Minute Manager series is a fantastic allegorical story about a mythical, perfect 1 minute manager who only needs to spend 1 minute with each member of his staff to inspire them, give them that context. That person does not exist. And I'm not saying that you will ever reach that level either, but as an allegorical story, it's fantastic. Leading Snowflakes is a great manual about engineering management and technical leadership, giving you some tips for how to refactor your calendar, etc., how to do one-to-ones. The Phoenix Projects, I imagine most people have read this, but it's always a great text to go back. It always blows my mind that this is so gripping, seeing as though it's about IT and DevOps, but it is actually quite an interesting story. And The First 90 Days is a great text for the first 90 days of you entering a business or starting to lead a new team, to understand the dynamics, what the different pain points may be. And finally, if you don't want to read a book, then I highly recommend Software Lead Weekly, which, as it says on the tin, is a weekly newsletter rounding up all sorts of articles from CTOs, engineering managers, and the gentleman who puts that newsletter together actually wrote Leading Snowflakes. So Leading Snowflakes is a nice summarization of all of that. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you so much, Luke. Wonderful. Okay, now the laptop wrote.